Welcome to our YouTube channel, your trusted source for breaking news and insightful analysis. I'm Gert, and in the next few minutes, we'll bring you up to speed on the latest chapters about Jane's life.
Chapter 9. Brian's POV. The intense glare of the sun is assaulting my eyes, making it feel like they might burn right out of their sockets. I muster the strength to drag myself out of bed when suddenly, Martin storms into my room with a bang, the force of the door hitting the wall amplifying the throbbing ache in my head. "Ah, there you are, finally awake," he announces as I begin to sit up, still squinting and rubbing my eyes. I try to dismiss him with a wave of my hand, but he remains, casually leaning against the wall next to my dresser. "What?" I manage to grunt, the pounding in my head threatening to split it open. I scan my room in confusion, only to spot a redhead sprawled out in my bed, her presence irritating me instantly. I silently curse myself, hoping I had the sense to use protection last night. She's still tangled in the sheets, and the sight of her only adds to my annoyance. Why does my libido always lead me to these airheads? The rogue girl from last night, where did she disappear to? Martin demands, his tone urgent. What is he on about? I can't deal with his drama this morning, not with this hangover. I continue to stare at the woman in my bed, her fiery hair fanning out across the pillow like a tangled web. Meanwhile, I tune out my beta, too preoccupied with my own misery. "Hey, you," I grunt, giving the redhead's shoulder a rough shove. She groans in response, rolling over and inadvertently flashing us with her chest. I emit a low growl of irritation, while Martin stifles a snort. "Deal with her," I instruct Martin curtly as I rise from the bed, urgently needing to relieve myself. I push open the bathroom door, and suddenly, my senses snap to attention. There's a faint but unmistakable scent lingering in the air, something that makes my mouth water, though it's barely discernible. I wonder if the cleaning lady switched up her chemicals. Brian, the girl who was in my room, where did she go? Martin's voice breaks through my thoughts as he follows me into the bathroom. "What girl?" I mumble, quickly finishing up in the bathroom and pulling my pants back up. My eyes briefly land on the trash can, where I spot a used condom. Thank the stars for small mercies, I think to myself with relief. The rogue girl, Jane. I brought her here last night, Martin explains, his voice urgent, but my head is pounding too hard for me to focus properly. I rack my brain, trying to recall the events of last night through the haze of alcohol and headache. I vaguely remember returning home and some girl in my bed complaining about a rogue. Then it hits me, the memory flooding back, but her face remains a blur in my mind. Still, something about the whole situation nags at me, refusing to be ignored. "Wait, you brought her here?" I question, shooting a glance at Martin, who's still lingering by the bathroom door. "Yeah, and her name's Jane. She and her son were sleeping at the train station," Martin replies matter-of-factly. My horror deepens at his words. "What?" I gasp, staring at him in disbelief. "She didn't have a kid with her," I insist, my voice tinged with alarm. Martin meets my gaze, his expression hardening as his lips curl back in a snarl. "Brian," he growls, his tone a challenge. If he were anyone else, I'd have knocked him flat for speaking to me like that. He's fortunate he's my best friend, or else he'd be lying on the floor unconscious. "Get my keys." I had no clue she had a damn kid. I wouldn't have kicked her out last night if I knew. I instruct Martin urgently. "Are you kidding me?" It was pouring rain. Martin snaps back at me, his frustration evident. Guilt washes over me as fragmented memories begin to resurface. I desperately hope I didn't harm her, though my recollection is clouded by the lingering effects of alcohol. The ground still seems unsteady beneath my feet as I move. The woman in the bed stirs, sitting up and rubbing her eyes before running a hand through her hair. I roll my eyes in annoyance at her, hastily grabbing some shorts and a shirt from my closet. "Get your stuff and leave," I snap at her, grabbing her dress and tossing it in her direction. "Baby, what's wrong?" she starts, but I cut her off sharply. "Don't baby me. Get out of my bed and my pack house," I command, irritation lacing my tone. Why do they always have to cling on like this? Mental note, steer clear of redheads. She's not even part of my pack. Who knows where I picked her up from? "Out, now," I bark, asserting my alpha authority over her. She scrambles to her feet, hastily pulling on her dress and grabbing her shoes. As she heads for the door, she shoves Martin with her shoulder. I snatch my keys off the dresser, hoping I didn't wreck my car again driving home drunk. I hastily slip on my shoes, a growl escaping me at Martin's words. The last thing I need is an unexpected child, especially one that could become another source of contention with my father. "What? You never know. With your track record, You probably have 50 kids you don't know about, Martin teases, his laughter ringing in the air. How old is she? I inquire, trying to push aside the rising anxiety. I don't know, but she definitely hadn't shifted yet. So she's young, Martin replies with a shrug. Not mine then. I stay away from jailbait. I retort firmly. She wasn't that young, maybe 18, or close to it, considering she hadn't shifted, Martin clarifies. Did she mention her pack? I press. Nope, Martin responds. All right, let's go find her. Maybe we can arrange something at one of the hostels for her and the baby, I suggest, the weight of responsibility settling heavily on my shoulders. They really need to do away with that law. We've got a few what the other packs would call rogue whores in our pack. It's disgusting how the other packs just turn their backs on them. I mutter bitterly as I settle into the passenger seat of Martin's car. The movement of the vehicle sends a wave of nausea through me, and I press my head against the window in an attempt to quell it. Somewhere along the journey, exhaustion catches up to me, and I drift off, only to be awakened by Martin shaking my shoulder. I glance up to find us pulling into the train station in no man's land. That's her car, Martin points out, gesturing towards a dilapidated wagon. All right, go see if your damsel in distress wants to be saved, I say dismissively, waving him off. The sky is overcast, evidence of the massive storm from last night. Large puddles in the parking lot have ducks swimming around in them, intensifying my guilt over forcing a woman and her baby out into this weather. Martin peers into the car windows, and with a heavy sigh, I toss the door open and join him. She's not here. Wonder where she could have gone, Martin remarks, scanning the area before heading towards the train station. I'll check if the guards are around and if they've seen her, he calls out over his shoulder before disappearing from view. Meanwhile, I peer into the windows of the beat-up wagon, noting its decrepit condition. The car's rear is packed like a miniature grocery store with baby supplies, formula tins, diapers, canned food, a quilt, and a pillow. There are hardly any personal belongings, except for a photo album wedged between the passenger and driver's seats. Martin returns, shaking his head in disappointment. CCTV footage shows she left this morning with a bag and her son, he informs me grimly. Maybe she went back home, I suggest, and Martin shrugs in response. He heads back to his car, retrieving a baby carrier from the back seat. I assist him by placing it beside her car before rummaging around for a pen and some paper. Why don't you leave a note with your number? Think she'll reach out? I inquire, and Martin nods in agreement. He finds an old envelope, hastily scrawls his number on it, and tucks some money inside for a payphone in case she doesn't have a phone. Placing the note inside the baby seat, I glance up at the darkening clouds. It looks like rain is on the way. It'll get wet. Give the note and the car seat to security to pass on to her, I suggest, and Martin nods in understanding. He strides off towards the train station with the carrier in his arms. With nothing more we can do while she's not here, I feel the urgent need to either crawl back into bed or get my stomach pumped. Either option would suffice if it means relieving this sick feeling in my gut and this pounding headache.